Hello there, I'm Matteo, the Chief Mobile Opinionist here at Tech Travel Geeks, and this is the Tech Travel Geeks side-by-side comparison between the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4, currently two of the arguably best value devices in the sub £200 price range, available to purchase quite widely both from network operators, from Amazon and other retailers. If you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube. Right then, so last year we unboxed and did some first impressions and a few extra videos about the Nokia 3.4. This is currently priced at around about £120 in its configuration with 3GB of RAM and 32GB of storage. And the Nokia 5.4 launched much more recently at the beginning of January. We did an unboxing and setup video as well as a comparison video with the Nokia 5.3, its predecessor. And now we're going to compare the 5.4 and 3.4, which are devices in the same generation from Nokia, and see what the differences and similarities are. What is the difference between the two devices in terms of price? It's about £30, the Nokia 5.4 is £30 more expensive, but what does that get you in reality? Now obviously the first thing you could say is, well, one's shiny and the other isn't, and you'd be right. The Nokia 5.4 has this fingerprint magnet design with lined sort of textured effect underneath it, which is very, very eye-catching. It's very, very nice, but I would argue it's not very practical. And I'm sure it's fine because most people will be using the Nokia 5.4 in a case. We have already unboxed and reviewed a case from SD Tech for the Nokia 5.4, whereas the Nokia 3.4 has a textured plastic back finish. It's slightly textured. Apart from that, the design language is very, very similar. So shiny black, textured back, Nokia brand in the middle, fingerprint scanner in the middle of the back of the device, so it's ergonomically very, very accessible, and a round camera module. The key difference here is that the camera module on the Nokia 5.4, the more expensive device, has 4 cameras in it, and the flash module is off to the left, whereas the Nokia 3.4 has 3 cameras and a flash module within the same circular design. Now, there's a really big difference in terms of cameras, both in my experience using the cameras on the two devices and in terms of just the raw specifications. So the Nokia 3.4 has a key 13 megapixel basic camera. It's not the best camera out there. It's not even the best within its price range, but it's pretty decent. It does a good job. It also has a 5 megapixel ultra-wide sensor, which takes pretty decent shots in good lighting conditions, and then it has a 2 megapixel depth sensor to help with portrait shots. Now that's all on the back of the camera. We'll talk about selfie cameras in a moment. The Nokia 5.4, on the other hand, gives you a much wider range of cameras. The key difference is that main sensor, whereas the Nokia 3.4, as I said, has a 13 megapixel main sensor. The Nokia 5.4 has a 48 megapixel sensor. I mean, that is a really, really big difference. And even though it's not outputting images at 48 megapixel, it's pixel binning. So in reality, you're getting 12 megapixel shots. It is a world of difference. The Nokia 5.4's camera is much, much better. There is also a 5 megapixel ultra-wide camera, which is pretty much the same as on the Nokia 3.4. There's a 2 megapixel macro camera, which is pointless, absolutely pointless, like many other of these fixed focus 2 megapixel macro cameras, and a 2 megapixel depth sensor. Now, with regards to depth sensors, you can't really use those. They're used to help with computational photography and understanding what's in the background and what's in the foreground for portrait shots. But it's there. So the Nokia 5.4 really falls foul of the sticker camera, as our friend Miriam from the Mobile Tech podcast says. it really is just there for putting it there on paper. And I'm sure that in some markets that pointless camera is really important to people as a status symbol. But enough about Nokia's marketing through product. Let's turn the device around and have a look, first of all, at the charging ports. Now, both the Nokia 3.4 and the Nokia 5.4 use USB Type-C for charging, and both of them come with just a 10-watt charger in the box. It's very, very disappointing. And when I say that, it's because both phones have pretty decent 4000 mAh batteries, which paired with the device's batteries, management within the software is pretty good. But the downside is that you don't have fast charging. That is, you don't have fast charging unless you have a proper charger that you plug into. So as far as I've noticed, the Nokia 5.4 does support 15-watt charging and 18-watt charging. The Nokia 3.4, on the other hand, doesn't. And when we turn the devices around, things look pretty similar. So the two screens are practically identical. Very little difference in both my experience and on paper in the spec sheet. So the Nokia 3.4 is the first Nokia we saw last year with a dotch. And a dotch is that dot in the top left-hand side of the screen, which allows you to have a selfie camera without having a notch in the screen itself. So you see both the Nokia 5.4 and 3.4 have dotches. Now, the cameras on the two devices are quite different. The Nokia 3.4 has an 8 megapixel fixed focus selfie camera, which is capable of recording full high definition video at 1080p, and the same is in terms of capability for the Nokia 5.4, 1080p at 30 frames per second. The difference is that the sensor is a 16 megapixel camera, and in my experience it is actually better. Now, screen size is identical, screen notch or dotch in this case is identical, and the same goes for resolution and brightness. In my experience, they're pretty much the same. So they're both 6.3 inch or almost 6.4 inch diagonals. They're both HD plus displays, so they're not full high definition displays. They're 720 by 1560 pixels. They're the same size, resolution, and everything. And that accounts for the industrial design of the two devices being practically identical as well, both in terms of weight, size, length, height, etc. In terms of ergonomics for use, they're both very pleasant to use. They have relatively little bezels, but they have a bit of a chin at the bottom, as you can see here. And both of them have the power button and volume rocker on the right-hand side of the device. They both have a Google Assistant button baked into the device on the left-hand side when you're facing the screen, and that's pretty much it. They're both very pleasant to use without a case. What I would say is it is noticeably slippier to use the Nokia 5.4. That glossy plastic back is really quite slippy, whereas I personally prefer the textured finish of the Nokia 3.4. So in terms of that, they're pretty identical. It feels the same in terms of weight as well. So we've covered all the key things in terms of hardware, apart from the Courage port. We love Courage ports at Tech Travel Geeks, and that's 3.5mm audio jacks. Both devices have those. So difference is that 3.5mm audio jack is still present on the Nokia 5 series and 3 series in 2021. We hope to see that continuing as a trend. So overall, really happy with that in terms of hardware. Now, that's the external hardware. On the inside, we have a very different setup. Now, both devices have Android One. This is the Android distribution, which is closely supported by Google and allows to have the allegedly early updates and early software updates from Google and Nokia directly. Now, I have to say that is something that I do not think is entirely true. Much like most of 2020, there was a lot of things going on in terms of politics and people lying left, right and centre. We look at the security patches and we look at the updates on the Nokia 3.4 and the Nokia 5.4, and the situation is very, very sad. Both are still running Android 10. We're almost 4 months into the release of Android 11, and Android 1 on these Nokia devices has not had an update. The security patch on the Nokia 3.4 is still sitting at September 5th, 2020. We're now getting close to February 5th, 2021. I don't think that's acceptable at this point. And the brand new, released at the beginning of January 2021, Nokia 5.4 has a security patch for October 2020. So I would say this is really not good enough. Nokia have branded themselves as the brand that have Android 1 and get security patches and updates. In my experience, this is now the 14th and 13th Android 1 device from Nokia. I am really not sure that's the case anymore. I would not recommend either of these devices to anyone considering them just because of the fact that there are promises of updates, because that's clearly not happening in reality. So, okay, mini rant about Nokia and their Android 1 updates and their security patch updates. Let's move on and look at the software experience on here. As you can see, it's very clean, very simple, straightforward experience. The only difference I can tell between the Pixel devices is maybe a few features in the camera and other areas, but it is a Google experience device in the sense that the launcher, the menu, the interactions are all as you would find on a Pixel device from Google. That also includes the fact that the Nokia 5.4 and 3.4 ship with out-of-the-box experience as gesture navigation, so you don't have the buttons along the bottom. And the difference is here that I recently did a video for the Tech Travel Geeks YouTube channel specifying or guiding people through getting the 3 buttons at the bottom back. That is still an option, so you can go into options and enable that, both on the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4. So if you're interested in that, feel free to search for Tech Travel Geeks Nokia 3.4 back button how to, and that's where you'll find that video. So the software experience is very pleasant. It seems to have very few lags, and it works well. Default messaging and all default apps are the Google ones. Both devices have access to the Google Play Store, and I haven't had any issues there. In day-to-day use, unless you're doing some high-end gaming, both devices are excellent. And keep an eye out, we'll be doing some more gaming videos, putting these two devices through their paces in terms of performance, playing games like PUBG, Call of Duty Mobile, and other games. If you have any specific requests of which games you'd like to see used, leave us a comment in the section below. Okay then, so we've talked about that. In terms of media playback and everything, that HD plus screen, it's not full high definition, is great. For YouTube videos, for Netflix, both devices have great screens, and I've had no issues there. In terms of typing performance, they both have Gboard as the default keyboard. There's nothing to stop you installing a third-party keyboard if you'd like that, but I have to say, in my experience, Gboard is the best one, and it's customizable with themes and so forth. So all great in that department. So we've covered pretty much everything. One thing to say is that both the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4 in the UK, as purchased from Amazon UK, have NFC. That's near field communication. That's the chip and technology that allow you to use your phone for mobile payments. So that's a really, really reassuring thing in the UK. Now, what I need to warn you about is that depending on where you purchase the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4, in some markets, in some regions, these devices are sold without NFC. So bear that in mind if you are considering purchasing these devices. Double check with the retailer if the version that they are selling you has NFC. In other terms of connectivity, both are 4G devices with plenty of options. Both have the 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi, not 5 GHz, and it's Wi-Fi 802.11b, G, and N. No AC there. Both devices also have Bluetooth, as you'd expect. This is Bluetooth 4.2, not the latest standard, Bluetooth 5.2. It supports aptX, which is Qualcomm's standard for pairing and optimizing Bluetooth connections, specifically with regards to low latency and audio. So overall, really good connectivity and great for media consumption. They're great media players. And paired with that 4,000 mAh battery and battery optimizations from Nokia and Google, it does a really, really good job. So it does satisfy my needs as far as media consumption is concerned. As far as gaming is concerned, both are pretty decent. Both are running Qualcomm Snapdragon chipsets. The difference is the Nokia 3.4 is running, in this case, a Snapdragon 460 chipset. That is a pretty mid-range, if not low-end, chipset for a smartphone. Most users, for using it for all the basics, so messaging, social media, video, a bit of photography, the Nokia 3.4 will be more than enough for you. But if you're wanting to play video games, do some video editing on your smartphone, the Nokia 3.4 does start to suffer a bit. Whereas the Nokia 5.4, for that extra £30, does have a significantly better and more powerful chipset. In this case, it's the Qualcomm Snapdragon 662 chipset. That means that it runs faster, it's a much more powerful engine or chipset there, and it has an Adreno 610 GPU, exactly the same as on the Nokia 3.4. So in most cases, for gaming, video editing, anything that requires powerful computing, the Nokia 5.4 is definitely a step up in terms of its overall performance. Both are really, really good devices in terms of price and what they offer for the price. But sadly, Nokia are trading on their brand, and as I said earlier, they're not offering what they promise in terms of updates, as far as I see on these two devices and many of their recent releases. So bear that in mind when considering buying. Now, Nokia is a great brand, really good value. Arguably, Xiaomi with their Redmi line of devices do offer potentially much better value for money, with more battery life, more powerful chipsets, or just different chipsets altogether using MediaTek's chipsets. So bear that in mind when you're shopping around. But if you're a Nokia enthusiast or a Nokia enthusiast, these two devices offer great value for money, and I would say consider carefully what you'll be using your device for before deciding which one to buy. Now, I'll put the links in the description to where you can purchase the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4 on Amazon UK. Bear in mind that the version I have is of the Nokia 3.4 is the 3GB of RAM version, whereas the Nokia 5.4 version I have has 4GB of RAM. Both have expandable storage, and we'll put a link to where you can purchase a decent micro SD card that we can recommend, in this case SanDisk. So if you do make a purchase from there, thank you in advance from the Tech Travel Geeks. You'll be supporting us that way. Anyway, I'll wrap up this video. Apologies if I offended you with my rant about updates, but it is quite annoying when a brand, a trusted brand like Nokia, offers updates and timely security patches, and that definitely doesn't happen in your experience. Anyway, if you'd like to move the conversation about this and these two devices into the comments section, feel free to. We're happy to engage with you and see what your thoughts are about the Nokia 5.4 and the Nokia 3.4. But for now, thank you for watching, and if you don't already, please do subscribe to the Tech Travel Geeks here on YouTube.